Hello, passengers, co-pilots, shotgun callers, blunderbuss bellowers, and midnight riders. Welcome to another episode of Full Moon Empty Road. As always, I'm Jeremy, and I'll be your driver tonight. Hope everybody had a great weekend, and I hope you're ready for another road trip. And I hope you're all having or had a Merry Christmas and staying warm. To stick with the theme of the cold weather we're dealing with around here, I figured we'd head up north today to Pomfret, Connecticut, to a now deserted 18th century settlement known as Bara-Hack. Bara-Hack was settled in 1778 by Jonathan Randall Esquire and Obadiah Higginbottom, two colonists of English ancestry. They and their families fled the Randall homestead and farms situated on the coast of Cranston, Rhode Island, after the British advances of the Battle of Rhode Island in 1778 deemed it too dangerous for them to stay. They settled on land in Pomfret, Connecticut, previously purchased by Randall in 1776, and there they built their homes, farms, and livelihood, including a wheel-powered mill, a business which produced spinning wheels for the production of textiles, and a small burial ground that would be shared by individual members of both families. With it, one of the things I was wondering about when I did my research on this is, one of the founders of the area, Obadiah Higginbottom, kind of wondered if he was a relative of Dr. Higginbottom. So back in my ghost hunting days, one of the places I investigated was the old South Pittsburgh Municipal Hospital. That was actually a little over 10 years ago. That was the first investigation I ever did. And when we did the tour of the place before the overnight hunt, they took us around the place to kind of, explain the different haunts and stuff, different things seen and whatnot. And there were reports of a shadow figure seen that was believed to be, if I remember correctly, Dr. Higginbottom. And I believe they had said, and like I say, it's been 10 years ago, so a lot of this I'm trying to recall from a memory that doesn't work well for something that's, that I'm trying to remember from 10 days ago, so let alone 10 years ago. But I believe there was reports of, I think it was on the second floor, a pretty large, imposing shadow figure. And, they thought that, I think that was the one they thought was Dr. Higginbottom. So I kind of wondered if they were related. Now, that may be two completely different sets of people, so they may not have been, but that was what I thought about whenever I first started doing my research on this place. As for Bara-Hack, myths and legends have long been attached to not only the settlement itself, but its original inhabitants as well. Even the place names that it's generally referred to are questionable, as it never attained the size or scope of what could be considered a village, and even a hamlet could be a stretch. And Bara-Hack, a Welsh term, is loosely translated as the breaking of bread, is likely to be that of 20th century manufacture and has been primarily attributed to the writings of Odell Shepherd. The community was abandoned by 1890, and possibly sometime after the Civil War. According to the website atlasobscura.com, Higginbottom and Randall opened Higginbottom Linen Wheels. That was a company that supplied flax spinning to residents in the surrounding areas. Over time, Bara-Hack would grow into a tiny village that included a water wheel and a mill. Both sat along the picturesquely named Nightingale Brook. Fine family homes, slave quarters, and a community graveyard. Legends grew within the town, including tales told by the Randall family slaves of a ghost baby who could often be seen reclining in a nearby tree. Now, I mean, number one, I want to know how a ghost baby was climbing up in a tree and reclining. But, maybe people were just built differently back then. However, Bara-Hack did not flourish for long. Economic hardships and the death of the founding families soon drove the remaining residents away. By some accounts, Bara-Hack was abandoned by the time of the Civil War. Now, it was most certainly abandoned by the turn of the 20th century when day trippers started to make their way to the picturesque ruins of the settlement. The ruins quickly developed a reputation among amateur paranormal investigators and believed to be investigators and believers for. Let me start that over. Sorry about that. The ruins quickly developed a reputation among amateur paranormal investigators and believers for being haunted. There were reported sightings of the aforementioned ghost baby, a bearded face in the cemetery, and streaking lights and orbs. Otherworldly noises have also been reported, including the sounds of farm animals, horse-drawn buggies, and long-gone voices. Now, Bara-Hack was eventually closed to the public due to an increasing influx of paranormal enthusiasts. Today it sits on private property surrounded by no trespassing signs. Prearranged visits are occasionally allowed on the property, but trespassers do tend to sneak into Bara-Hack at their own peril. So, I don't know, at their own peril kind of makes me wonder, is it at their own peril due to what has been seen or heard there? And things happened, or is it a trespassers will be shot on sight kind of thing? Hauntings and a story of a curse seem to plague this land. Bara-Hack is also called the Village of Ghostly Voices. And with a name like that, let's move into the hauntings. The following information comes from ConnecticutHistory.org. As nature slowly reclaimed Bara-Hack, the settlement became a place of curiosity for those interested in colonial remains. An old cart path off Ragged Hill Lane led to cellar holes, building foundations, and a cemetery. This particular cemetery that it did lead to was the final resting place for numerous Randall and Higginbottom family members and their enslaved people. This drew visitors into the woods of Pomfret. It was then that the tales of paranormal activity at the site became popular. Visitors to Bara-Hack claimed they heard voices, sounds from the domesticated animals, and noises made by ghostly horse-drawn buggies passing by. In addition, newspapers reported sightings of bright orbs and streaks of light swirling over the cemetery. Researchers even found records of the most common sightings, that of an infant apparition reclining in a tree, reportedly by enslaved people of the Randall family hundreds of years earlier. So numerous places have reported this baby reclining in a tree being a common sighting at that time. In 1971, Paul Eno, a student and paranormal researcher, visited the site with a number of colleagues. Eno reported seeing a bearded face hovering over the cemetery for several minutes, as well as a host of other paranormal activities. The attention these reports focused on The attention these reports focused on Pomfret, brought unwanted attention to the area and resulted in the eventual denial of public access to Bara-Hack. Today, the old settlement resides on private property and remains closed to the public. According to the website astonishinglegend.com, while it was populated, there were also reports of strange activity. In fact, it said that the slaves of Randall saw ghosts near the cemetery often. In particular, sightings of an old man and a young child were often reported, but no one in the small town recognized these apparitions that they were seeing. Some believe that the town was doomed to fail, perhaps even cursed, since it pushed out the native Nipmuc people. At first, the Nipmucs tried to live beside their strange new neighbors, but soon, as more settlers from Rhode Island and beyond arrived, land kept on being taken from the Nipmuc people. The Nipmucs attempted to scare the encroaching settlers, and a few elders decided to chant and crazily whoop in the woods during the night. But when that failed, and the Nipmuc were driven further back, it is said that they cursed the land. We really should have left the Native American people alone. It seems like every time you turn around, there's another story of European settlers driving them out and natives cursing the land taken from them. And, it's and I always come back to this, especially when it's dealing with, native people being driven out. It seems like anytime there's a native curse or a burial mound, whoever runs them off ends up having a horrible time. And it seems like we just never seem to learn our lesson. It was abandoned just 100 years later when economic problems and competition arose. The families of both founders died off or left, and soon other townsfolk began to leave. Children grew up and never came back, and after a few years of these patterns, Bara-Hack was completely abandoned. Sorry, that was my phone. I forgot to cut off the notifications. In 1927, Odell Shepard, a professor at Harvard and Radcliffe College, visited Bara-Hack and wrote, this is quoted from what he wrote, "Although there is no human habitation for a long distance roundabout, and no one goes there except a very few who go to listen, yet there's always a hum and stir of human life. It is as though sounds were able in this place to get round that incomprehensible corner, to pierce the mysterious soundproof wall that we call time." As mentioned earlier, the settlement is now privately owned and unfortunately covered in no trespassing signs. However, the place does occasionally allow investigations, though not too terribly often. So, let me know what you think of Bara-Hack. Every time I went to look up a new place to do an episode on, Bara-Hack always popped up. And I kind of figured from the get-go that there wasn't going to be a lot of information to make a too terribly long of an episode, but it keeps popping up, so I figured, let's do some research on it. I actually enjoyed some of the stories I read on it, enjoyed the history on it too. With it being I guess where it didn't even flourish for very long and still managed to have as much haunted history as it did. So figured I'd choose this one this week, and hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. You can follow me on social media, Facebook at FMER Podcast. You can follow me at Twitter, Full Moon MTRD, Instagram, FMER Podcast, and TikTok, Full Moon Empty Road. Something I noticed this week, I now have a fifth location popping up for my listeners, so I'm showing that I have a Canadian listener now. I don't know if that's someone who is stomping in and checking out all the episodes, or if that's someone who just kind of popped in from maybe a TikTok post or something and then took off. But to my Canadian listener, if you are here and here to stay, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the content. And for everyone else, thanks again for listening today. And I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, and stay warm and enjoy this time with your friends and family. And before we go visit Tiffany at the Vinyl and Sublime Company. She can do all things from decals, shirts, tumblers, mugs, and much, much more. She has created the first Full Moon Empty Road t-shirt. You can find her on Etsy at the Vinyl and Sublime Company. She even does custom orders. To request a custom order, You can email, text, or use the request a custom order at her Etsy shop. Drop her a line at the vinylandsublimeco@gmail.com or shoot a text to 706-913-7837 to get started on your custom order today. Go now and tell her I sent you. And again, sorry this was a bit of a short episode, but I'm going to give you the rest of the day back and go enjoy Christmas with your family, and Merry Christmas from me and from Full Moon Empty Road. Now, let's go home.